All right, let's travel back to ancient Rome. Picture it, you've got your toga on, probably too tight, but that's a fashion trend we'll get into later, and you're just trying to live your life. You've got the patricians at the top, acting like they invented everything cool, and then there's your plebeian, aka someone who literally does all the work, but gets none of the glory. You might as well be the guy holding the broom after a party while the patricians are bragging about how great they are at throwing it. But guess what? The plebeians weren't having it, and they didn't just sweep up the mess, they revolted. Grab your popcorn, because this is a classic underdog story where the little guy took on the big guy and, spoiler alert, they kinda won. Let's talk about how the plebeians fought for equality with the patricians in ancient Rome. It's like Game of Thrones, but with more sandals and less dragons. So picture this. Ancient Rome, 500 BCE, and the place is buzzing with action. The patricians, the aristocratic elite, think they're hot stuff because, well, they are. They're the lawmakers, the landowners, the bigwigs, the kind of people who would have their faces on coins if they had access to Photoshop. Meanwhile, the plebeians are the backbone of Rome. They're the ones farming the land, building roads, serving in the military, and doing everything that keeps Rome from falling apart. But do they get credit? Nope. They're basically treated like the unsung extras in a movie while the patricians are the stars. If you've ever been that person who works at a party but isn't allowed to touch the hors d'oeuvres, you'll feel this pain. But what happens when the little guy gets fed up? Well, in this case, they decided to do the most dramatic thing ever. They left. Yes, they walked out. I'm talking a full-on walkout. It's like those moments when your boss asks you to work an extra shift, and you just stare at them, say nope, and turn your back. The plebeians pulled this power move called the secession of the plebs. You know what happens when your workforce just up and leaves? Chaos. Total chaos. The patricians were like, wait, we need them to actually, run this place. They were so desperate, they had to call the plebeians back. But the plebeians weren't just strolling back in like, oh, sorry, I was just having a little me time. Nope. They were ready to make demands. First on the list, they wanted laws that protected them. Ever tried asking your landlord for a little more respect? Imagine doing that when there's no rent control. Well, the plebeians pushed for the 12 tables, a set of laws that finally made the patricians stop acting like they could do whatever they wanted. This was Rome's first official law code, and the plebeians weren't having anything less. Finally, they had some rules, no more arbitrary judgments. Think of it like that time you got your teacher to start grading the class fairly, and suddenly life got a whole lot less stressful. But the plebeians didn't stop there. Oh no, they got smarter. They realized, hey, we need someone who can actually speak for us in the Roman Senate. We need an ally. Enter the tribune of the plebs. These were like the ultimate negotiators, the diplomats of the plebeian world. They could veto the patricians' decisions, that's right. These plebeians were no longer just asking for a seat at the table. They were sitting at the table and flipping it over when they didn't like the menu. Talk about power moves. Yet, not everything was sunshine and toga parties. It wasn't like the plebeians suddenly became the new ruling class. No. They had to keep pushing, constantly fighting for better representation. Every time the patricians thought they'd got the plebs in check, the plebeians pulled another move from their sleeve. It was like a non-stop game of political cat and mouse, only with more spears and fewer tweets. Now, let's talk about the big turning point, the Licinian Sextian laws of 367 BC. This was like the ancient Roman version of finally getting the promotion after all those late nights at the office. These laws allowed plebeians to hold the office of consul, a top governmental role previously reserved for patricians only. That's right, finally, plebeians were not just allowed to be the muscle. They were the decision-makers. Patricians everywhere were like, wait, what? Now we have to share the power? It was like suddenly realizing the office coffee machine had a new keymaster. The plebeians were no longer just doing the work, they were running the show, but don't think this struggle ended after a few laws were passed. The plebeians had made some big strides, but eventually, as history often does, things changed again. The Roman Republic transitioned into an empire, and just like that, the plebeians found themselves facing a new set of rulers. But here's the twist. Despite all the highs and lows, the plebeians' fight wasn't in vain. They set a precedent that was felt long after their time. Their fight for equality sparked the change that over centuries paved the way for modern democratic ideals. Are you ready to channel your inner plebeian? Because if these guys could fight for their rights in togas while dodging chariot traffic, I think you can handle standing up for yourself at the office or even in the kitchen when it's your turn to do the dishes. Take a page from the plebeian's book. If something isn't fair, speak up, show your worth, and get the respect you deserve. After all, they didn't just roll over and let the patricians win, so neither should you. And here's the kicker, despite all their hard-fought victories, the plebeians never really won it all. The Roman Empire didn't exactly become a utopia of equality. But the important lesson here is that the plebeians left a legacy. Their fight for equal rights wasn't just a series of protests or strikes, it was a shift in the balance of power, a movement that inspired future generations to demand fairness. So the next time you're dealing with a power imbalance, just think, what would a plebeian do? And remember, even in a toga, they did win some serious power. Who knows? Maybe your revolution is just one email away.